HOA Karen built a road through my pasture, then screamed as bulls charged their cars. The land I grew up on, the land had been in my family for decades. Wide open pasture stretching across rolling hills. Old wooden fences running along the edges. A small red barn standing near the center of the property. And cattle grazing peacefully under the sun. It wasn't just land to me, it was home. My grandfather bought the property long before any neighborhoods existed nearby. Back then the area was nothing but farmland. The new neighborhood years later, things began to change. Developers started buying land nearby. Large houses appeared where open fields once stood. Luxury neighborhoods replaced quiet farmland. One of those developments came with something very familiar. A strict perfect sidewalks, identical mailboxes, and a long list of rules. At first the new neighborhood didn't bother me. They stayed on their side of the fence. I stayed on mine. Everything was peaceful, at least. For a while. Karen arrives. Every HOA eventually has someone who loves enforcing rules. In this neighborhood, that person was Karen. Karen believed the HOA controlled everything, not just inside their community, but the surrounding area too. She constantly complained about things outside the neighborhood. Farm equipment noise, tractor lights at night, and even the cattle. Apparently she thought cows were too loud. The first complaint: one afternoon Karen showed up at the fence line. She stood there staring at the pasture. Then she waved for my attention. "I need to talk to you," she said. I walked over calmly. Karen pointed toward the cattle. "They're too close to the neighborhood." I tried not to laugh. The cows had been on that pasture for decades, long before the houses existed, but Karen wasn't interested in history. She wanted control. The road idea. A few weeks later I noticed something strange. Construction trucks near the edge of my pasture, workers measuring land near the fence line. At first I assumed the neighborhood was expanding, but when I walked closer I realized something shocking. They weren't building inside the HOA, they were building through my pasture. The confrontation: I drove my truck straight to the construction crew. "Who authorized this?" I asked. One worker pointed toward the neighborhood. "The HOA hired us." Apparently the HOA believed a new access road was necessary, and the easiest route was straight across my land. Karen's explanation. Karen arrived soon after, completely confident. She explained that the road would improve neighborhood traffic. It would connect their back entrance to the main highway, saving residents several minutes of driving. Then she said something unbelievable. "We assumed you wouldn't mind." The simple problem: there was one major problem with that assumption. They never asked. They never requested permission. They simply started building a road across private farmland. Karen seemed shocked when I told the construction crew to stop immediately. The HOA response: instead of apologizing, the HOA doubled down. Karen claimed the road was necessary for the community. She insisted the project would continue, and she warned me not to interfere. That was the moment I realized something important. Karen believed the HOA had more authority than it actually did. The fence problem: construction continued anyway. Within days a gravel road stretched across part of the pasture, right through the grazing area, and here was the real problem. That pasture wasn't empty land. It was active cattle territory, specifically, bull territory. The gate farm pastures always have gates, and the new road crossed directly through one of them. The construction crew removed the gate completely, leaving the road wide open. Cars began driving through almost immediately. Residents loved the shortcut, but they forgot something very important. They were driving through a field full of livestock. The first incident, the first time it happened, was almost funny. A small sedan drove slowly down the new gravel road. A few bulls lifted their heads. They watched the car carefully. Cattle are curious animals, but bulls can also be territorial, and loud engines don't always make them happy. The second incident, a few days later, more cars started using the road: SUVs, pickup trucks, residents treating the pasture like a neighborhood street. The cattle became restless. They moved closer to the road, watching every vehicle that passed, and then one afternoon, everything escalated. The bull charger driver accelerated loudly while passing through the field. The engine roared. Dust kicked into the air, and one of the bulls reacted instantly. It lowered its head and charged. The car stopped immediately, but the bull kept coming. Chaos on the road. Within seconds, other bulls followed. Several massive animals running across the pasture. Drivers panicked. Horns started blaring. Cars reversed quickly, trying to escape the field. The quiet shortcut suddenly turned into complete chaos. Karen's reaction. Karen arrived shortly after, and she was furious. Not at the construction crew, but at me. "Control your animals," she shouted. I looked at the road, then at the pasture, then back at Karen. "My animals are on my land," I said. The realization: neighbors started gathering along the fence, watching the situation unfold, because suddenly everyone understood the obvious truth. The HOA had built a road through an active cattle pasture without permission, without fencing, without safety planning. Authorities get involved. Eventually local authorities were called. They inspected the situation carefully, and the conclusion was simple. The road had been built on private property, without authorization, which meant the HOA had a serious problem. The road disappears within weeks. Construction crews returned, but this time they weren't building, they were removing the gravel. closing the path and restoring the pasture. The road that Karen insisted on building disappeared completely. Peace returns to the field once the road was gone. The pasture returned to normal, cattle grazing peacefully again. No cars, no dust, no angry bulls charging vehicles, and Karen, she stopped visiting the fence line entirely, because she finally learned something important. Just because a neighborhood HOA wants a road, doesn't mean they can build it anywhere they like. What would you do if someone built a road across your land without permission? How would you handle it? Would you stop construction immediately, take legal action, or let them learn the hard way? Comment below and tell me what you would do. And don't forget to write your city and country in the comments. If you enjoy stories like this, like the video and subscribe for more unbelievable HOA stories. And I'll see you in the next one.